Hello beautiful people, and welcome back to my channel. I am Annie, also known as Any Given Sunday, and I am so excited to be back with another video. And this video I'm hoping to kick off, or I'm kicking off what I hope will be a series, and probably just a permanent series on my channel called Mentor Me Please. And this really stems from the number of requests that I receive on a daily basis to serve as a mentor, and besides the fact that I quite literally feel like I do not know what I'm doing enough to mentor someone, I also just do not have the capacity right now to provide the attention that I know a mentee-mentor relationship requires. So instead, I am still coming on here and giving some insight and probably answering a lot of the questions that I would receive on calls or in DMs right here on my YouTube channel. So do not be surprised if I directed you to this video, because that is the entire goal of this series. There are a lot of things that people can receive mentorship for, and it is not strictly professional. So if you have some things that you want me to chat about on this channel and in this series, feel free to leave a comment down below or DM me. I'll probably put some question boxes on Instagram. Speaking of which, you should follow me on Instagram. Check out my blog, anygivensunday.com, at anygivensunday. I'm there, I'm doing things, we love to see it. And so even though most of the time when people think of mentor and mentee, they think professional and career, I'm really hoping to cover a wide array of topics, whether it is, friendships, whether it is relationships, romantic relationships, whether it is travel, whether it is, being a Black woman in your 20s in New York City, where I'm from, all of those things. So feel free to just leave anything in the comments that you have ever wanted to receive some sort of mentorship or guidance or advice for, and I would be happy to chat about it, because that's what I'm here for. Even though mentoring relationships are not all about career, I am going to start there with today's video, because that is what I'm known for. But before I even get into that, subscribe to my channel. I know I'm a little, wishy-washy here and there, but look, we brought out the big guns. The camera, the nice fancy camera is out. We're doing it. We have a whole nice setup here. We moved on up or whatever. So feel free to subscribe so that you know when my next video drops, because they will be coming. They will be coming. They will be coming. That being said, let's get into it. Today's video is on the biggest myths, misunderstandings, and misconceptions that people have about law school. Whether you are pre-law, which is a misconception that I will talk about, or whether you are just somebody who just does not have accurate information or proper perception about law school. Maybe your friend is in law school or is a lawyer, things like that. So, hopefully this video provides a little bit more knowledge and demystifies and contributes to your understanding of what really happens when people go to law school or when people come out of law school, all of those things. So let's get into it. Number one, the hands down biggest misconception that I am almost every single day telling people or answering questions about is the misconception or the myth that you need to major in something law related in order to go to law school. More specifically, that you need to major in poli-sci, political science, or government, which is what it was known as at Harvard, in order to go to law school. Did I major in poli-sci / government? Yes, I was a double major. If I could go back in time, would I do it again? Absolutely not. It was not something that I was genuinely interested in or passionate about. I discovered sociology, and I double majored actually in sociology and government. And I always say, if I had an extra year, I would have dropped government altogether. It was kind of an incremental thing. It was all right, first I started off being government, then I tacked on sociology as my minor, then I made sociology, then the following year, my junior year, I made sociology my double major, but then I made it the secondary in my double major, and then my senior year I made sociology the primary in my double major and government the secondary. And I was like, if I had one more year, I probably would have reached the point where I just dropped government altogether and only majored in sociology. There are a number of reasons why this tends to be kind of a misconception, and the biggest one is I think it sounds good. Most people who or not even that it sounds good, it's that most people who want to go to law school associate the law with government, right? Because like that's where our laws come from most of the time, at least public laws. And so I think in that way, people are like, oh, in order to go to law school, I need to have a background, I need to have an understanding. And the mini misconception there is that you need to know anything to go to law school. They will teach you what you need to know in law school. There's nothing that you can really learn before you get to law school that will prepare you for what law school demands of you. And that is because professors want their own things. Schools are different, curriculums are different, things like that. And even though like we're all shooting towards taking a bar exam and things like that, like it really is just kind of like, you know, a free-for-all almost of sorts. And so I would say the solution or the biggest takeaway or the truth is that you can major in whatever you want to major in, but you need to do well. I think there's some rumblings out there that, if you study one of the hard sciences, law schools might be more lenient with your GPA. I don't have experience with that, and I'm not an admissions officer, so I'm not going to necessarily tell you that. But what I will tell you is that good grades get you far. Excellent grades will get you further. And so having a strong GPA, regardless of what your major is going to do you is going to help you much more than studying political science because you think you need to study it and then maybe not doing as well in it because you just genuinely weren't interested in it and the concepts just weren't really flowing with you. Political science, like, it's not like you're out here studying laws. You are studying theory, political theories, how governments form, why they form and the way they do, the various types of governments. Like, it's all theory, and it's not at all like what you learn in law school, which is also theoretical, but to an extent more based on the judicial system versus the political science being more based on, I would say, maybe the executive or legislative, if that makes any sense at all. So yeah, myth number one, you need to be pre-law, and that's another thing. There's actually no real such thing as being pre-law. Maybe your school has something that's called like a pre-law major, which like that would kind of raise an eyebrow for me. And what I mean by that is, compared to medicine, where there is pre-med, being pre-med in medicine means you actively have to meet certain requirements in order to get accepted into medical school. And if you don't meet those requirements, you'll have to do a post-bac program. You'll have to take those classes to make sure that you meet the requirements necessary to go to medical school. And if you don't meet those requirements, then you actively cannot go to medical school. So like, you can be a sociology major who is pre-med, right? Like, and do the sociology, but like, you need to make sure you meet the requirements that the med schools are asking you for. There is no such thing. There is no similar structure or setup in law school. Like, there's no like, oh, you need to make sure you have 5 constitutional law classes or 1 constitutional law class, 1 this. You need to make sure you meet this and in this bucket. There's nothing at all like that. No one's going to look at your transcript and say, oh no, you need to go to a post-bac law program. Why? Because the post-bac law program does not exist. And so in that way, like, there genuinely is no such thing as really being pre-law. Study what you want to study. Study what interests you. Study what intrigues you, because college, especially if you're at a liberal arts college, is one of the last opportunities that you have to truly enjoy academics for the sake of academics. Once you go to law school, you can enjoy it, but it's for it a lot, by and large, is for the sake of getting a job, because like, you came to law school to get a job. Like, that is what professional school is. And so in that way, I would say study what you want to study. It will make your college experience more enjoyable. And just think about how you can craft a narrative about going to law school if what you study ends up being kind of far off or something like that. Far off. So for example, like, if you study film or if you study art or something like that, right? Like, there's art law, right? Like, there's entertainment law, and there's a way that you can spin that narrative to talk about how what you studied has led you to want to pursue law. If that is your truth. If it is not your truth, tell your truth. But like, just because you study not something that is completely seemingly unrelated to the law doesn't mean that there is not a way to tie it back in. So just think critically about those things, because there's no major that will keep you from going to law school. And lastly, the misconception that I will talk about probably is most relevant to me. And I don't even think it's a misconception as much as it is a misunderstanding or just something that people overlook, is that you have to practice law. I don't think I even intended for the sentence to end the way it did, but yeah, I think it's interesting because I feel like everyone, when they're applying to law school, has the traditional notion of what it is to be a lawyer. And that's, what you see on Suits, what you see on Law and Order SVU, what you see on the TV shows, in the courtroom, in the movies, all of those things. And well, that's another mini misconception. Most people actually won't be in courtrooms. A lot of lawyers do not actually litigate. And they might do things like negotiations and deals or reviewing contracts, but they may not necessarily be in a courtroom litigating. So that's a mini misconception for people. But I think people go into law school and they have a conception of, what it means to be a lawyer, and that is, justice and equity and fighting for rights and being in a courtroom and all of that stuff. And the truth is, a lot of people leave the practice of law and they still use their JD, they still use the experience that they have, but there's so much more that you can do with a JD beyond being a lawyer. And it's interesting because you kind of have to want to be a lawyer first, if that makes sense. And the reason I say that is because law school is a little bit too expensive in terms of money, but also time, energy, resources. It is a little bit too expensive to be I want a JD so I can be an entrepreneur. No one's really going to say that, because it is still called law school after all. And so I think it's why do you want to be a lawyer is going to be the question, and also the question that people have to address. You have to, in a way, want to be a lawyer, but if you get to the profession and realize it's not really what you thought it would be, or it's not really what you wanted, you absolutely can pivot. And there are so many people who do. I've seen so many, and the thing about it is, people don't really know it. I don't think there's a clear understanding of how people with JDs get to do all of the things that they end up doing that is outside of practicing law. But you just hear of the JD who's a CEO, or the JD who's running their own business, or the JD who's a superintendent, or the JD who is in the Senate, or the JD, all of those things. The JDs are everywhere, but there's no this is how you get to do those things. It's kind of all right, you just live your life and you take your career one step at a time, one day at a time, and you make decisions that way. And so I think it's a big misconception that to go to law school, going to law school means you will be practicing law forever. I'm an example of that much sooner than I thought I would be. But I also, by the time I was halfway through law school, was kind of just yeah, I don't know that I see myself practicing law forever. And I've even had other people tell me that as well, that they could see me going down a number of different paths that don't necessarily mean I will be practicing law. And so if you find that you are in law school and you are feeling the same as well, does that mean you should drop out? Not necessarily. It just means you have to be more keen or aware about the things that excite you, pay attention to those things. And it means you actively have to seek out more non-traditional resources, because law schools often push the stereotypical path down your throat by default. And if you do not push against that, you will go down the stereotypical path by default. And so it takes a little bit more work to be all right, my path is going to look a little bit different, but paths are different, and there are so many options out there if you go to law school but do not want to practice law. And just like that, we have come to the end of this video. I'm keeping it a little bit sort of short and sweet, but I am so looking forward to chatting. I'm so looking forward to chatting more with you and to just sharing some, mentorly, that's probably not even a word, advice. So yeah, be sure to again subscribe, check out the other videos on my channel, and I look forward to seeing you again next time. Bye.